Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. It's awesome that you have joined us this morning. I am Chris Johnson and I serve on UUCA's Board of Trustees, and it's great that we are together, whether it be here in the sanctuary or online. Our mission statement at UUCA is to come for community, find inspiration, and live with purpose. Here at UUCA, we are a dedicated, inclusive community of differing abilities and disabilities, both seen and unseen, many genders and sexual identities, a community of diverse cultural, racial, and class backgrounds. No matter how long you've been coming to UUCA, whether here or online, I hope you feel welcome and part of our community. This morning, Reverend Amanda's sermon will explore what it means to be a religious tradition with love at its center. I hope you can join us after the service this morning for our in-person community coffee time, I believe being held in the center. There will also be interest tables set up in the center. Just as a heads up, we are experimenting with the tables in the center and we welcome your feedback. UU for Social Justice will be hosting the Right and Right Now organization in Fellowship Hall after the service to help you connect with your legislatures and take action on different important issues. Thank you for joining us this morning, and I hope you will join us at the coffee hour after the service. By the way, if you're new to UCA and would like to learn more about our community, please feel free to reach out to someone on the ministerial team, Board of Trustees, or someone at the welcome desk after the service. We look forward to meeting you.
Chris, thank you so much for that welcome. And Jeffrey, thank you for the music that began us. And thank you to all of you for being here. I don't know if it's still spitting like ice pellets from the sky the way it was when I drove in this morning. But even if it's just gray and cold, I congratulate you on arriving. Or I congratulate you on staying home and being in your cozy spot at home watching now or later. I do invite you, though, to say hello if you are in the sanctuary today, especially to greet someone who you do not know. Good morning. Good to see you. I love to see the hugs and the waves and the elbow bumps and the prayer hands as we greet each other in our own way. It is good to be together. This morning, every author of every piece that we share, this call to worship and our prayer and our reading and quotes shared during the sermon, is or was a Black Unitarian Universalist or Unitarian Universalist, depending on when in history they lived, except for the author of the Wisdom Lesson, who is a white Unitarian Universalist who wrote the story that I'll share about a Black Universalist minister. Our call to worship comes from the Reverend Patrice Curtis, who serves now as Transformational Interim Ministries Director at the Unitarian Universalist Association. These words come from Blue Notes, B-L-U-U, a compilation of readings, poetry, and music, and the first publication of Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. This piece is titled Morning Song. I invite you to take a breath for Reverend Patrice Curtis's words. You, yes, you, right there, you reading this, you are the spirit of the holy, face of the sacred. Your frail, strong human body, the universe manifest. I give my thanks for you. I turn my face and hands toward you to behold and hold you precious. My kindness lays upon you and surrounds you. And when I fail, frail myself, I turn yet again and again to be gracious to you. I am inseparable from you for all time, from this life to the next and all that follow. It has been so, it is so, and will be forevermore.
Friends, each week we light our candle of compassion to hold space for those who are experiencing loss. And this week, we hold Reverend CTC in our hearts as she grieves the death of her father at the age of 95 this past Monday. Our compassion is also with our siblings in Turkey and Syria as they grapple with the death and displacement from the earthquake earlier this week. And we also hold the Wakefield High School community and the entire teen community affected here in Arlington in grieving the death of Sergio Flores. We also light our chalice this morning, gathering together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. And please join me with the words in your order of service. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
I want to invite you now to rise in body or in spirit or in voice to join in singing our opening hymn, But Wait. We have, I didn't mean that quite so forcefully, sorry. We've switched the order of the hymns from what we had planned this morning, and so we are going to begin with Building a New Way, which I believe is 1017 in your teal hymnal. Trust me, we all think it flows better this way, so just thanks for bearing with us and being flexible. And now rise in body and spirit and voice, however you are moved and able to rise as we sing together.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that's the seed. We can feed our every need.
Well, I would like to invite up to join me any smaller people, younger people who might want to join me on the chancel. Oh, good. Thank you so much. You are not small, you said? You are not small. Yes. You know what? I say that a lot myself because I'm not so tall as some people, but I agree. I'm not small, and neither are you. Excellent. You're younger. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So younger people, please, regardless of height or felt height. That's much better. Oh, look at this. I love your t-shirt. It says, be kind. Excellent. Okay, here we are. So I would like to tell you a story today about one of our Unitarian Universalist ancestors. So someone who was a part of, not this church here exactly, but part of Unitarian Universalism, part of the tradition that our church is part of a long, long time ago. So I'm going to tell you the story of Joseph Jordan. Can you all take a look at the picture? Can you see it? Joseph Jordan. Here's Joseph Jordan. Here's Joseph Jordan. He's not very smiley in this picture, I do notice, right? Yeah. I think that when Joseph Jordan was alive, he was born in 1842, and when he was alive, people didn't really smile so much in pictures because there weren't a whole lot of photographs. It was a big deal to get a photograph, so you were usually very serious. You can see he's very serious in the picture, and he did very serious things. But I like to think that he was actually probably smiley a lot in real life because what we know about him is that he was full of love. So here's how that happened. Joseph Jordan was born in Virginia, not very far from here, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours away, on a little town on the Elizabeth River in Virginia. In 1842, and he was born a free person, but at a time when many people who were of African descent, who were black, who had brown skin, were not free in the United States, right? They were enslaved. And so he was born free, but at a different time in America. Now, because he was born free, he was able to learn to read and write, which was not allowed for people who had been enslaved. And so he learned throughout his life, and he worked as well. He had a couple of jobs, but he always was reading and learning. Now, he was raised, do you want to see the picture? Here, there he is. Very serious, but also very loving. He was raised as a Baptist, went to church, and it was very important to him, but he wasn't ever quite sure it was exactly what he believed in his heart. And one time, someone gave him a book. Have you ever been given a book by a friend? Like a friend said, you got to read this book, it's so good. Yes, okay. And did you like the book? Yes. Maybe yes, maybe no. Sometimes, right? They're not always the perfect recommendation for us. Well, Joseph Jordan was given a book by a friend, and it was called A Plain Guide to Universalism. And this book, not only did he love it, but it totally changed his life. This book told him about a religion that believed universalism, a religion that believed that God loves everyone. God loves everyone the same, and God is love, and that love is so big, it's for all people. And Joseph Jordan thought, well, this is it. This is what I've really been thinking in my heart, right? That he was now able to learn about in this book. And is that what you think in your heart too? It's what I think in my heart. And so he was so changed by this idea from this book that he actually traveled to Philadelphia. Have any of you been to Philadelphia?
My dad has.
Your dad has, excellent. Some of you have been to Philadelphia. It's a couple hours away. It's like, that was a big journey, especially, there were no cars. So he traveled to Philadelphia and he learned from Universalist ministers in Philadelphia, and he became a Universalist minister himself. Like me, he was the first Black Universalist minister in the United States, first African-American Universalist minister in the United States. So after he became a minister, he moved back down to Virginia, to Norfolk, Virginia, and he so believed this message that God was loving and that love was for everyone, that he started a church so that other people could come and learn about this religion that had changed his life. And then he thought, well, if God is love and love is for everyone, we should probably make the world a little bit better. And so he also started a school, and the school was particularly for Black children who weren't allowed to go to other schools. They weren't allowed to go to most of the schools in Virginia. He ended up starting 3 different schools, and they taught children with Universalist ideas about how love was for everyone. Imagine a whole school all around the idea that love's for everyone and that God is love and it's for every one of us, every single one. And so that was what Joseph Jordan did with his life, and that's why I think that even though he is serious in this picture, because it's serious and important work, right? To be a minister and to start these schools, that was important. He does look a little like he's frowning. I think he just looks studious. He's very studious here. But I do think that in life, he probably was smiling a lot too, because it's a really joyful and beautiful thing to realize that love is for everyone and to spread that message. So, Joseph Jordan, one of our ancestors in Unitarian Universalism, I hope that you will learn yourself about love being for everyone in your classes, or maybe you will teach your teachers about love being for everyone. And I want to invite you now to thank you for being with me today, and to invite you to go to your classes as we sing you on your way. Thank you so much, Devin. Thank you for being with us.
Peace to you on your way. May you grow in love each day, meeting new friends and opening your mind to the wonders of the world you will find. To the wonders of the world you will find.
I do hope our children know love is for everyone. I hope you know that this morning. I hope you feel it in your bones that you are loved. Our prayer this morning comes from Everett Hoagland, a professor emeritus of English at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, the first poet laureate of New Bedford, Massachusetts, and a member of the First Unitarian Church in New Bedford. This poem is also found in that anthology, Blue Notes, and it is titled Invocation. Before I share it, I want to invite you to get your body and your mind and your heart, which are all the same thing, it turns out, right? In a space to receive invocations, right? To be open. So just settle yourself in your seat, make yourself comfortable, whatever that might look like for you. Maybe you'd like to close your eyes or to soften your gaze, but keep them open. Take a breath. Oh, feel yourself arrive here in this moment together. Invocation. Architect of icebergs, rainbows, jeweler of crystals, sand grains, snowflakes, atoms, mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean, chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals in stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this. Spinner, you are everywhere, in all the ever-changing above, whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough waves of the common cloth threaded with our DNA on the hubbed, spoked, spinning wheel that is this world, solar system, galaxy, universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation, and all creation in ourselves in one another. Remind those of us who like connections made with similes, metaphors, symbols, that all of us are, everything is, already connected. Remind us that as the oceans go, so go we. As the air goes, so go we. As other life forms on earth go, so go we. As our planet goes, so go we. Mysterious Muse, who inspired in the beginning was the Word, edit our thoughts so our ethics are our politics, and our actions the afterlives of our words. May it be so. Amen.
Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arréglame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We sang earlier about building a new way, and this month we are sharing our offering with Little Friends for Peace. Little Friends for Peace has partnered with UUCA for more than 20 years, offering programs about peace building and conflict resolution and transformation. Really important practices these days. If you'd like to be involved with Little Friends for Peace and their annual Peace Camp, there will be a session here at UUCA this summer. You are invited to be part of that session. Reach out to Molly Jewell, whose information can be found in your order of service, or you could also visit them today at their table in the center, as Chris mentioned earlier in his board welcome. 70% of today's offering will be shared with Little Friends for Peace, and I hope you'll give generously to support their work. 30% of the offering will support our ongoing work here at UUCA. You can give today with cash in the plate, with a check, or with any of the methods listed in your order of service or on our website or on your screen today. However you give, thank you for your support today. We are grateful. Will the ushers please collect the offering? This song makes me want to move my body. It's also a reminder that spring is around the corner, regardless of what that's doing out there today. Would the ushers please come forward? Thank you. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. And please join me. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation. Thank you.
Just as Amy Dreyer comes up to share what will be a wonderful and maybe tearful sharing, I want to let folks know that she just was out supporting someone who had a medical emergency. That person is conscious and fine. He's going to go and be tested, but if have some tests. But just as you may see medical personnel coming through the back, don't worry, all is taken care of. Deep gratitude for Dr. Dreyer and for our ushers and all the folks who I know immediately moved with Sarah Masters' help and support to offer care. All is well. We are grateful for the community that holds us all together. We need each other. Thank you, Amy.
Good morning. As I said in the first service, something about this chancel makes me cry, so bear with me. Whew. Nothing like a medical emergency to get you going in the morning. I am Amy Dreyer. I use she, her pronouns, I've been coming to UUCA since 2007. If you remember from Rev CTC's sermon last Sunday, she quoted Maya Angelou as saying, "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." And I think that includes our UUCA origin stories, more or less. I was raised in a nearly evangelical Methodist church in rural Maryland, which to my then shame never ever made sense to me. In a fit of rebellion during my first year of college in 1988, I attended the UU Church of Northampton, Massachusetts, and was utterly flabbergasted when the man giving the sermon was a rabbi in a church. And at that moment, I swore that as soon as I settled somewhere, I was gonna find and attend a UU church. So how lovely it was in 2007 when I settled not 1 mile away from UUCA. And I remember being flabbergasted yet again by two things about this place. Number one, we were founded by humanists. Number two, my new church teaches comprehensive sexual education to kids. I don't know about you, but having comprehensive sex ed in 8th grade would have made high school and college a much different story, which is a tale for another time, maybe. I do know for certain that teaching OWL here at UUCA, or Our Whole Lives, or comprehensive sexual education has changed the course of my professional life. A short, oversimplified history a la Rev. Amanda. 1960s, sexual revolution. UU parents say, "Oh my God, what do we teach our kids about sex in the face of Hugh Hefner?" 1970s, UUA says, "How about AYS? About your sexuality, multimedia, field trips, film strips of a sexual nature, controversial in much of the US, lawsuits included." 1992 to 2000, how do we teach about sex to reflect how much has changed since the 1970s? UU's worked with UCC to create OWL, which was introduced in the early 2000s and updated around the time that I joined. I caught the OWL train in 2013. It involved an interview, a background check, and a 25-hour training to become an 8th grade OWL facilitator. Now, in case you don't know, the year-long 8th grade course covers anatomy, relationships, bullying, social media, sexuality, masturbation, intercourse, outer course, sexual assault, consent, STIs, the condom relay race, teen pregnancy, abortion, contraception, gender identity and expression, and a whole lot more. We show the dreaded naked slides. We have a question box for anonymously written questions, which can hijack the lessons off on tangents that are as important as anything written in the book. We have a panel of disabled folks, and we have a panel of LGBTQIA folks, and that is the panel that changed my life. Meeting gender-expansive folks willing to share about their lives and journeys opened my eyes to a world that has shaped my professional life. I left the ER as an overnight ER pediatrician, and I read a ton, and I attended conferences, both medical and political, to become an LGBTQ-educated provider for adolescents. Seeing groups of OWL kids up close every week nudged me to get more comprehensive training in mental health care so I can provide it in my practice. Using what I learned about consent from OWL, I now teach anyone who will listen the tools and knowledge to combat sexual assault. Each year, the OWL participants, adult and adolescent, covenant to create a brave space for science-directed, values-based, honest conversations around sexuality and relationships to equip and prepare our kids to venture into adulthood. The OWL course changes and grows with the kids we teach and the information they ask to learn to fully live into who they are. We teach them, they teach us, and together we create a comprehensive sexuality course standing on the foundation left for us by our history. And friends, this all happens downstairs at your 75-year-old church. Think of all the kids we've taught. Think of all the lives we've changed. Think of all the history we join here at UUCA. Thank you, and happy birthday, UUCA.
Just take a deep breath and let that land for a minute. That was beautiful and a lot, and I'm really grateful for Amy, for you, and for people like you that are teaching OWL. I was recently, also did the training and just amazed and wondered, where was this when I was young? So grateful for that. So this reading is Songs for the People by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. And Frances Ellen Watkins Harper was an American abolitionist, suffragist, poet, temperance activist, teacher, public speaker, and writer. She was also a member of the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so she's one of our Unitarian ancestors. And this is Songs for the People. Let me make songs for the people, songs for the old and young, songs to stir like a battle cry wherever they are sung. Not for the clashing of sabers, for carnage nor for strife, but songs to thrill the hearts of men with more abundant life. Let me make the songs for the weary, amid life's fever and fret, till hearts shall relax their tension and careworn brows forget. Let me sing for little children, before their footsteps stray, sweet anthems of love and duty, to float o'er life's highway. I would sing for the poor and aged, when shadows dim their sight, of the bright and restful mansions, where there shall be no night. Our world, so worn and weary, needs music pure and strong to hush the jangle and discords of sorrow, pain, and wrong. Music to soothe all its sorrow, till war and crime shall cease, and the hearts of men grow tender. Girdle the world with peace.
Friends all gathered round, something I would say. What brings us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside. We're strangers or a family, loneliness can't hide. So give yourself to love. Love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I walk these mountains in the rain. I learned to love the wind. I get up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. Like sunshine on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. So give yourself to love. Love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Love is born in fire. It's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you're ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It'll be your greatest teacher and the best friend you have made. So give yourself to love. Love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love.
Oh, sometimes I just want to say, that was enough sermon right there. Thank you, Devin. And thank you, Amy, for sharing so beautifully about your experience with OWL. How many folks here have taught OWL? Raise your hand if you're an OWL facilitator in the past. And how many folks have had their child go through OWL or about your sexuality? And how many people themselves went through OWL or about your sexuality? Holla, yep, I got you. Whew, it's a ministry. I want to just have a note before I share what I've prepared. I shared at the beginning of our service that all of our various contributors today, and this is consistent with the ministry team's commitment over February for Black History Month to center Black voices in our readings and our prayers, our calls to worship, that all of our contributors, anything you hear that isn't Greg or my original voice, is that of a Black Unitarian or a Black Universalist or a Black Unitarian Universalist, both ministers and lay people. But I want to be clear that this is not a sermon about the Black Unitarian Universalist experience, of which there is not one, but many. This is a sermon about Unitarian Universalism. And our ancestors and our prophets in Unitarian Universalism include Black ancestors and Black prophets, African American ancestors. I just want to offer that as we learn about Unitarian Universalism that is all of ours. So January 29th, I preached about Unitarian Universalism. I preached about the Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes, and in particular about some of the changes that are being proposed nationally by the Article 2 Study Commission that's looking at those principles and purposes and offering some new language which Unitarian Universalists will vote on in June of 2023 at our General Assembly in Pittsburgh. Which you should all go to because it's only 4 hours away and it'll be great. And I heard from a lot of you about that. I heard from those of you who were excited about the new language and really thought it sounded great. I heard from those of you who were confused about the new language. I heard a lot about people who were confused about what the heck is going on. What are you talking about? People who were worried or don't like the language, aren't sure about it, and so. Stay talking, right? Keep an eye on your email for a letter with some links so that you can dig in deeper in the next week and learn more about the Article 2 Study Commission and the language proposed. Make sure you've marked March 5th on your calendar when we'll gather with River Road and Cedar Lane to talk together about that language. But my overall experience, with the confusion and the worry and the I'm not sure and I don't like it, and is how wonderful it is that we care, that we want to have these big conversations with each other, right? About how we describe our faith and how we describe our values. Because what we're doing with each other when we have these conversations is talking really about our theology. In a progressive religious tradition, in a living tradition like Unitarian Universalism, we are making up our theology all the time. We don't have one source for our theology the way you might in a creedal tradition. I was talking with a friend who's pastor within a mainline Christian denomination, one in which they have to use the lectionary to preach. They have to use the reading in the lectionary. Some of you probably grew up in traditions like that. And they were noting that this week, one of the texts is the one about plucking out your own eye. And I think they felt a little jealous that we could just talk about our theology, right? About what's at the center and about the theology that we create all the time in our living, in our justice work, in how we teach our children, in how we care for each other. We're creating theology. We're doing theology with each other here. So we're doing it and we're talking about it, and the language we use is important, right? And so I think that's why we're so interested and excited and worried and confused about proposed language that changes, right? Because we know that it speaks to what is at the center of our faith. At the center of the theology of the language that's being proposed, that we're invited to consider as Unitarian Universalists, right at the center of all these other values like transformation and equity and justice and interdependence and generosity and pluralism, at the center of all of that is love. The proposed language puts it this way: love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Love is the power that holds us together. We are accountable to one another through the spiritual discipline of love. So love, I feel like we're generally pro-love around here, Thanks to OWL, we are pro-love with consent and pro-boundaried love and pro-love for all people and love of all sexualities and genders. We're pro-love. But what does it mean for us theologically to say that the spiritual discipline of love is at the center of our faith? What exactly does that mean? I think actually that we can look back to our history, and in particular to our Universalist ancestors like Joseph Jordan, whose story we talked about this morning with our children. People who were so taken with the idea of love being at the center, love being what God is, and a love so big that whatever they were taught about hell couldn't possibly be right because it just is not consistent with a God who is love, who's love for everyone. We look toward those ancestors, and I think we can see in their language and in their ministry and in their work, their living, what it means to put love at the center of things. Perhaps you had your own story like that. Maybe you were raised with an understanding of hell or of wrongness in who you are or even in the world around us. And maybe you too discovered that love was just too big for that. Sometimes people try to separate Unitarians and Universalists by saying that Universalists were all about love, right? A loving God, and Unitarians were all about reason. And there is some truth to that. It's certainly true that our earliest Unitarian ancestors tended to get there through kind of a reasoned approach to religion. Many of them read the Bible, read the New Testament in particular, and said, oh gosh, everything I've been taught about what's in there isn't exactly what I read, with a really close reading and annotated texts. And, and they reasoned themselves into some of their understandings as Unitarians. But I think that if we look a little deeper into the Unitarian heresies, right, the original articulations of what Unitarianism is, if we look a little deeper, I think that we may find love at the center there as well. One of the original heresies of Unitarianism, as I'm sure you all recall from January 29th sermon, just nod your heads, please, is the rejection of original sin. So the rejection of the idea that we are born sinful and need to be cleansed in order to enter into the family of God. Unitarianism said instead, we are born with the capacity to do good and the capacity to do wrong, and it is our work to grow in goodness and to create a world where everybody can grow in goodness together, where everybody can flourish. That sounds a little like love to me. The other thing that people say about Unitarianism is that it is a religion of action, a religion of doing, right? A religion of social justice work, of making change in the world. I will say we maybe shouldn't knock the Universalists as though they weren't doing anything. Those 3 schools we learned about just this morning certainly seemed like they were something. But still, we often associate Unitarians with this work out in the world, right? A religion of doing the thing. I wonder if we think about the famous Cornel West quote, that justice is what love looks like in public, whether we might not find love in that doing too. Perhaps if the Universalists held at their heart the kind of love that saves, the kind of love that is personal, a love for each one of us, the Unitarians held in their hearts a kind of love that does, a love that compels us to act in the world. You might even imagine that Universalism focused on a love received without merit, just a love received through the grace of the world, through the grace of the divine, through the beauty of the universe by each one of us. And Unitarianism spoke of a love that acts in the world, a love that we give to each other. And maybe, just maybe, Unitarianism and Universalism needed each other all along so that they could together be the kind of love that is received and the kind of love that is given. Or as Devin sang this morning for us, give yourself to love if love is what you're after. A virtuous cycle of love received and love given back to the world. I was raised Unitarian Universalist as a humanist. So really, originally, I was raised as a secular humanist, not within a UU congregation. And then I found my way to a UU congregation through a very well-timed sleepover with a UU friend. And then discovered, you may have heard this story, that my family was Unitarian Universalist all along. In fact, in a weird twist of fate, my grandmother found Unitarian Universalism at this church 40 years earlier. I was raised Unitarian Universalist, but humanist, right? And in the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany, that was a strongly humanist congregation with a humanist minister. My family was humanist. That's really was my sort of full experience with humanism. And as you may know, I served for 12 years as clergy at the Washington Ethical Society, which is a specifically humanist congregation, part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, but with its own history and kind of distinct culture and theological orientation toward humanism. So then I went to a Christian seminary for my training, Wesley Theological Seminary, and I was surrounded there by theist language and metaphor. I fell in love with the prophets of the Torah and with the message of Jesus. When I was growing up, at least in Unitarian Universalism, people often asked, well, do you believe in God or not? It was like a yes-no question, right? And I was never sure exactly how to respond. Yes, every other Tuesday afternoon. No, but only because the word's not big enough. Maybe sometimes back and forth. Ask me again in a couple minutes. I have at some times in my life said, oh yes, I definitely believe in God, and at other times I have said, no, I really don't think so. And I am grateful that at all those times in my life I was Unitarian Universalist, that this tradition is big enough that it can hold not only our own separate diverse beliefs and theologies, but also our own journeys, right, in one person. Little plug here. Side, a PSA is now present for you. For a class I'll be teaching in April around theological diversity and claiming and naming our theologies. Keep an eye out for that in Faith 360. And while I'm at it, I might as well say I'm starting a young adult class on theology and Unitarian Universalism and who we are. That starts this afternoon. You're very welcome if you fall within that young adult category to join us. Okay, the PSA is over. So I never really knew how to answer this question that was presented as a yes-no. Spoiler alert, I think it might be more complicated than that. But I always knew that love was somehow at the center. My understanding of love has changed and expanded over time. It's been informed by my own experiences, by parenting and by heartbreak and by new definitions of love from Cornel West and from Bell Hooks and by queerness and by romance novels and by life. My understanding of love has changed and expanded, but it has always been there, somewhere in the center of things. Love as an organizing principle for the world, as I experience it. Love as that beautiful divine presence that whispers to you from the trees. Or love as that feeling that starts in my stomach and then rises up thick with unshed tears when I see people being especially good to one another. Sometimes I say that I am not sure whether God really moves in the world, like whether the world has a direction toward goodness, you know. But I act as though it does because that's the best way I know to live. And that's what love is for me as well. I guess I am not really sure that all of us receives love as our birthright, that we are given love by sheer presence of being received from the universe and from the divine. But I live like that is true because I haven't found a better way to make it through life. I live as though our ancestors who knew that love was too big for hell, our ancestors that knew that love was right at the center of who God could possibly be, I live as though they were right. I still am not totally sure how to answer what I think pretty much might not be a yes-no question. But I found some words I want to close with this morning from Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper, minister of the Unitarian Church of Barnstable, Massachusetts. These words are titled the 23rd Psalm Revisited, and I think they are about as good an answer as I have ever heard. Love is my shepherd. I shall not want. Love embraces all of me in her green pastures. Love cradles me in her still waters. Love restores my soul. Love compels me towards justice for the world's sake. Even though I walk through life with death ever before me, I fear it not. For I walk not alone. Love is with me. Her deep roots and dark wings, they comfort me. Love brings me to the table in the presence of those with whom I am at discord. Her rich brown hands bless me with the oil of compassion. My heart overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the arms of love my whole life long. Amen. And now, we'll sing that hymn I promised you from the beginning. Our heart is in a holy place. It's 10:08 in your teal hymnal. I invite you to sing with love.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we're blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell the story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Friends, we extinguish this chalice, but not the light and warmth it represents. These we take with us, bringing our own sparks of love to the world.
May you bring those sparks indeed, those sparks of love. May you receive it, a gift freely given. May you offer it to act in the world. May you know that you are loved at the center of all things.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people walking by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They will learn so much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.